I want to start by giving you a bit of background about my wife and me. My name's Jack. I'm 45 years old, and my wife, Emily, is 44. We've been married for 23 years, and we have a daughter named Samantha. She's in her final semester of college and aiming to become a math teacher, which has always made us proud. I was raised on a ranch in a tiny Texas town. My childhood was a blend of hard work, sports, rodeos, and hanging out with friends. After high school, I pursued a degree in agriculture, dreaming of teaching it someday. Money was always tight, so I worked part-time to support my family. During my last semester of college, my parents retired, sold our ranch, and moved into town. Tragically, they were killed in a car accident coming back from my graduation. As their only child, I inherited around $400,000 from the sale of the ranch, a shocking amount since they had never shared the details with me. The months that followed were a blur of grief and sadness. However, in August, I secured a job teaching agricultural science at a high school near Austin. I used my inheritance to buy a 25-acre ranch just outside of town. I built a modern log cabin, a horse barn, and a training ring for the horses I planned to get, along with some cattle. I wasn't actively seeking a wife, but I was open to the idea of sharing my life with someone special. About a month into the school year, my mentor teacher set me up on a date with Emily. Initially, I was reluctant, but I decided to give it a chance. When Emily opened the door, her beauty took my breath away. Our first date was smooth with dinner and drinks, and we ended the night talking on her balcony. I couldn't help but wonder why such an amazing woman was still single. Emily echoed my thoughts, complimenting me and expressing her attraction. Blushing, I admitted I had never felt this way before, and that there was something extraordinary about her. "Thank you, Jack," she said. "Most men I've dated were either clueless or inappropriate. I've never met someone I wanted to seriously commit to until tonight." I turned to her, and as our eyes locked, we kissed. It was soft and delicate, not forceful. We stayed in that embrace for a while. Then I said, "Emily, I'd love to see you again. There's no need to hurry, but I want to explore where this could lead. I want to get to know you deeply before we take any big steps." "Jack, you're one of the kindest men I've ever met. You're a true gentleman." "Most guys would have tried to make a move by now," she replied. I laughed softly and said, "I'd be lying if I said the thought hadn't crossed my mind. You're stunning and captivating. But I respect you and what we might have together. I'm looking for something meaningful, not just a quick fling." She kissed me again and said, "Me too, Jack. You're special, and I'm excited to see where this goes." Emily came from a humble background and couldn't afford college, so she chose vocational training in administrative and secretarial skills. She had been working for a successful small business in Austin for the past few years. Over the next several months, we grew close and fell in love. About a month after our first date, we had our first intimate moment. It was intense and passionate, in the front seat of my truck after a movie. Our desires overwhelmed us before we even made it to the truck. The windows fogged up, and the truck rocked as we shared a euphoric experience. Emily's passion was undeniable, filling the cab with her cries of pleasure. We then went to my home, spending the night wrapped in each other's arms. It was a night of deep connection and passion, solidifying our love. In March, she moved in with me, and by June 1st, we were married. A little over a year later, Samantha was born, and for the next 23 years, we enjoyed a happy family life. Though we weren't wealthy, we were content. Our intimate life remained vibrant, with Emily's passion never fading, nor did mine. However, over the past 5 or 6 months, our closeness had diminished, but I still felt the spark, or so I thought. Here's the situation 23 years later. About 6 months ago, Emily got a new job as the executive secretary for the CEO and owner of BRB Enterprises. Her boss, Alexander King, owned a company that made high-end electronics for the U.S. government. Given his wealth, I assumed his business was flourishing, especially since he was its sole owner. Emily seemed to enjoy her new position and often spoke highly of her boss, Alex. At first, I felt a pang of jealousy until I met him. At 58 years old, he was balding and overweight, making me feel like a model in comparison. When I asked Emily about it, she laughed and reassured me that no one could compare to me, babe. She often expressed her appreciation for our cozy moments, which eased my worries. But my anxiety resurfaced when Emily started going on business trips with him for 2 or 3 days at a time. Despite my questions, She brushed them off as routine work trips, insisting that she had her own accommodations and that they were strictly business. Although still uneasy, Emily gave me no reason to doubt her, so I let it go. That brings me to that crucial Friday. After coming home from school, I went straight to the barn, where I'd been for about an hour when Emily arrived. As she got out of her car and headed toward the house, I called out, saying I was happy to see her and offering to make steaks for dinner. Emily, just back from another 3-day business trip with her boss, glanced my way but only nodded before going inside. Once inside, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and asked if she wanted a beer or a glass of wine. She said a glass of wine would be nice, still not making eye contact and staring at the floor. Sensing her discomfort, I brought her a glass of wine and set the bottle next to her. Finally, she looked up at me, and I could see she was troubled. After a kiss and hug, I asked what was wrong, noticing her distress. Emily drained her wine glass in one gulp before pouring more, her actions revealing her inner turmoil. I tried to comfort her, urging her to tell me what was on her mind, assuring her it couldn't be that bad. She responded, indicating the seriousness of the situation and asking me to listen without interrupting. With bated breath, I waited for her to continue, unprepared for what she was about to say. "Jack, I need you to understand that I love you with all my heart. What I'm about to say doesn't mean you're not a great husband, partner, friend, or father. Jack, you are the most incredible man I have ever known." As she said this, I felt a sense of dread, knowing that this conversation was about to take a drastic turn. "I've decided to file for divorce. I'll be leaving immediately. Your suspicions about Alex and me were correct. We've been having an affair for the last 5 months. He's deeply in love with me, and we plan to get married as soon as our divorce is final. We'll split everything fairly. You can keep the house, ranch, and all our possessions. I'll only take my clothes and personal items." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "Go ahead," I replied, shockingly composed despite the raging storm of anger and hurt inside me. "I'll file for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Let's keep this process as swift and painless as possible," she continued, giving me a moment to respond. "Emily, do you love Alex?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. "I respect him and find him fascinating. Maybe love will come with time." "Does Alex satisfy you physically more than I do? Is he a better lover? Were you unhappy with our intimacy?" "No, Jack, he doesn't compare to you. You've always been an amazing lover, and I've always been satisfied with you," she reassured. "Have I treated you badly? Are you unhappy with me? I can't understand why you're breaking up our family. I'm genuinely confused," I confessed. "Jack, Alex showers me with lavish gifts. He loves me deeply and shows it with grand gestures. He believes marrying him will give me a life of luxury, fancy cars, exotic trips, designer clothes, and fine dining," she explained. "So this is about money. You're leaving me for a wealthier man. There's a term for that, Emily, and it starts with G," I retorted bitterly. Emily protested, tears streaming down her face, insisting she wasn't a gold digger. She expressed regret for hurting me, but felt compelled to pursue this chance to marry into wealth. I responded, pouring out my heartache. I recounted the 23 years of dedication I had given her, offering everything from love to my heart and soul. Apologizing for not meeting her financial expectations, I asked for some time alone and told her I'd be in the barn while she packed. Even though I sensed her remorse, her focus seemed fixed on her newfound lifestyle. In the barn, I sat on a hay bale, overwhelmed by emotion. This time was different. Tears flowed freely, something my father had always told me real men don't do. Yet, I was in utter despair. What could I have done differently? Was this my fault? These thoughts cut through me as I wept, realizing this would be the last time Emily would make me cry. Emily entered the barn, saw me, and exclaimed, "Oh my God, what have I done? Jack, you never cry. Have I hurt you that much? I am so sorry." "Well, Emily, you just came home and dropped this bombshell. You're destroying our marriage, breaking up our family, moving out, and filing for divorce. For the past 5 months, you've been with another man. And to top it off, you claim it's because I didn't earn enough money. Yet you say you still love me, but it seems love means nothing to you anymore." "Jack, I have to go. Alex and I are flying to Paris tomorrow morning. We'll be gone a few days. When I get back, I'll start the divorce proceedings." You're in a rush to throw away 23 years of our life together. Have you thought about how this will affect Samantha? I'll call her tonight. She'll understand. Alex has promised to buy her a new Mercedes and pay off her college loans, including the ones you took out. No thanks, Emily. I can handle my own loans, and I doubt Samantha can be bought like you have been. She gave me a strange look but said nothing. You better go, Emily, but know that once you leave, it's final. I won't take you back. Don't come crying to me when this falls apart, and make sure to keep your sugar daddy happy tonight. I thought she might reconsider, but then she said, Goodbye, Jack. I love you and will miss you. I love you too, Emily, I said quietly. After she left, I sat down and cried some more. Eventually, I pulled myself together and decided to move on. I walked over to my 2 horses, the only females left in my life, and petted them. They responded with gentle nudges. Heading back to my now empty house, I grabbed another beer. About an hour later, Samantha called. Dad, are you okay? I just talked to Mom. Has she lost her mind? What's she thinking? She's fallen for a rich guy and thinks his money will make her happy, I replied. I guess I couldn't give her everything she wanted. That's nonsense, Dad. She believes that old creep and his money will complete her life. She tried to convince me he'd be a great stepdad, promising me a new car and to pay off my college loans. I told her to shove it. I had to laugh. I'm glad you see through it, Samantha. I reassured Samantha, and we chatted for a while, lifting my spirits. She promised to support me and vowed to stay away from the sugar daddy. After a few beers, I fell asleep on the couch, but my night was disturbed by unsettling dreams. In one particularly vivid dream, I was at a mall and stumbled upon Emily giving oral sex to Alex in a women's dressing room. She looked up, laughed, and continued, despite Alex's notably small member, which was barely 2 inches. The next morning, my old college roommate Michael called. We had kept in touch over the years, and he had been my best man at the wedding. Michael works for the FBI's fraud division and remains one of my closest friends. It had been a couple of months since we last spoke. I answered his greeting and asked how he was doing. He replied that he was doing well and inquired about my situation. I admitted that things were rough, explaining that Emily had left me the day before and was seeking a divorce. That was why I reached out to him. Michael sounded urgent and said he needed to see me as he was in town, offering to come over right away. I was puzzled about how he knew about Emily leaving. He clarified that he didn't know, but had some important information that he thought I'd find interesting. Agreeing to meet shortly, I wondered what Michael could possibly know about my situation. It all seemed bizarre, and though I hadn't thought about revenge, I had a sinking feeling it might be on the horizon. Michael arrived about 30 minutes later, and I offered him a cup of coffee as we settled on my back deck. It was a beautiful morning, and Michael commented on the peaceful surroundings before expressing his sympathy about my marriage. As I shared everything with him, I noticed he didn't seem surprised. Michael, it seems like you already knew about Emily and Alex, I remarked. Jack, what I'm about to tell you stays between us, Michael cautioned. I shouldn't be telling you this, but as your friend, I feel obligated. We never had this conversation, and you can't share it with anyone. Of course, Michael, this sounds more serious than just a marital issue, I replied. It is, Jack. It's also official business. I'm involved in an operation concerning Alexander King. We suspect he's been committing fraud with government contracts, potentially defrauding the U.S. government of millions. If proven, he's in serious trouble. We've been undercover gathering evidence for several months. In another couple of months, we should have all the evidence we need to bring him to justice. Wow, Michael, this is incredible. I despise that guy. I'd love to see him brought down. It would serve Emily right. How could she be so foolish, leaving me for him? Plus, since Emily is his executive secretary, is she implicated in this fraud? We don't think so. We haven't found any evidence indicating she's aware of his crimes. However, she'll become entangled eventually when everything unravels. She believes she's getting a wealthy new husband and a perfect life. During our surveillance, we uncovered Emily's affair with Alex. I was waiting until I had solid proof before informing you. Her lust for wealth led her to betray you, Michael said, opening his briefcase and producing a large envelope. Tossing it to me, he added, Here's plenty of evidence of their affair if you want to use it in your divorce. If anyone asks, you didn't get this from me. I opened the envelope to find 8x10 photos, emails, and several explicit videos showing them together, complete with dates and times. It was hard to look at and stirred up my emotions again. I maintained my composure and thanked Michael for his efforts. Interestingly, in the close-ups during their encounters, Emily didn't seem to be enjoying it. There was a lot of faking on her part. I knew how she acted when she was truly pleased, and this wasn't it. Another ironic detail. Alex did indeed have a small penis. Michael mentioned he had to return to work and informed me he would be in town for a few more days, anticipating a showdown with King soon. Michael, how about we grab dinner tomorrow night? It's on me for all you've done for me in this mess. Sounds great, Jack. My sister Sarah is coming tomorrow. Would it be okay if she joined us? Absolutely. I haven't seen her since she was 13 in braces. She's 36 now and quite stunning, I hear. Ironically, her divorce was finalized today. She came home early from a business trip and caught her husband in bed with his secretary. We might have something to discuss then. She's a partner at a corporate law firm and is here to open a new office for them. Maybe she can help you find a good divorce attorney. I'll definitely ask her about that. See you tomorrow. I met Michael and Sarah at a local Mexican restaurant the following evening. Michael's sister was indeed stunning, just as he had described. Sarah greeted me with a warm hug and a kiss on the cheek. I playfully teased her about her transformation from the awkward 13-year-old with braces and pigtails into a stunning woman. She laughed and said, "Yes, I've grown up quite a bit, haven't I?" Reflecting on the past, I admitted that I used to tease her about her braces and acknowledged that she had become one of the most beautiful women I had ever met. During dinner, we talked about my situation, as Michael had already filled her in on the details. We agreed to keep everything confidential due to the ongoing investigation. Michael suggested that I could claim the photos and videos were obtained by a private investigator if needed. I informed them about Emily's plan to file for divorce when she returned from Paris, citing irreconcilable differences. "Jack, you need to be proactive," Sarah said, suddenly serious. "I know an excellent family lawyer who specializes in infidelity cases. She took my ex-husband to the cleaners. I have her card in my hotel room. We can grab it later and get started on Monday so you can serve Emily as soon as she's back from Paris." Things were moving quickly, but I was impressed with Sarah's determination and wondered if she'd be interested in spending more time together. As dinner wound down, Michael received a call and had to leave. He offered to cover the bill, but I insisted it was my treat. Sarah and I finished our margaritas and prepared to leave. She suggested going dancing since the night was still young, and I agreed, mentioning a nearby spot. We spent the next 2 hours dancing, drinking, and enjoying each other's company. Saying we hit it off would be an understatement. We seemed incredibly compatible, and I felt comfortable and happy in her presence. Afterward, we returned to the restaurant to retrieve her car. She asked me to follow her to her hotel so she could give me the lawyer's card. Once in her room, she handed me the card and advised me to call her friend the next day to set up a meeting for Monday. She assured me she would give her friend a heads up and was confident her friend would be accommodating since they were close. Grateful, I asked how I could ever repay her. She responded by wrapping her arms around me and kissing me passionately. We both melted into the kiss and moved to the bed, continuing to make out until we both needed to catch our breath. During the pause, I confessed my desire to kiss her since I first saw her again. She smiled and complimented me on my looks and handsomeness. We resumed kissing, our hands exploring each other. She touched me through my jeans, and I felt a surge of arousal as my hand slipped under her blouse. I suggested we should take things slow, not wanting to take advantage of her after her recent divorce. She asserted herself, saying she was a grown woman who knew what she wanted. She admitted being deeply attracted to me and hoped I felt the same, implying she might be the one taking advantage of me. She shared how discovering her husband's affair initially made her blame herself and question her worth. But eventually, she realized it wasn't her fault, recognizing her own qualities and confidence. She hoped I didn't blame myself for Emily leaving, as she had initially done in her own situation. She shared thoughts from the previous night, where she had wondered if she had caused everything, questioning if she was a bad wife who couldn't fulfill all of her husband's needs. However, after spending time with me that night, she concluded it wasn't her fault. She mentioned I had been a good father, husband, and lover, providing everything I could. We kissed some more, but mostly just cuddled on the bed, finding comfort in each other's presence. The next morning, we woke up in each other's arms. I invited her to lunch at my house and suggested we go horseback riding, which she enjoyed. Later, we ended up on the couch, where things heated up again, but remained only a heavy makeout session. We decided to continue seeing each other and see where it led. I took Monday off and met with Lisa, the attorney Sarah recommended. I recounted my story and presented all the evidence I had. Lisa, a seasoned lawyer with 30 years of experience, was visibly disgusted with my wife's behavior. She proposed filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity and abandonment, aiming to secure the house, ranch, and assets. We had $10,000 in savings, which we would split. I would retain all the money in our checking account. Emily's car payment and credit card were in her name, so she would keep them. I had been covering her car and health insurance, but Lisa advised canceling both immediately. Any joint credit cards would also be canceled. Lisa ensured all my bases were covered. She mentioned we would use the explicit photos and videos only if necessary. Lisa wanted to know when Emily would return from Paris. I told her it was scheduled for Thursday morning. I provided Lisa with the address Emily had left for mail forwarding. Lisa planned to serve her the divorce papers that morning, noting that Emily might not like the infidelity clause, but she would likely agree to everything else given her eagerness for a quick divorce to marry Mr. King. Lisa suggested informing Emily that she would consider modifying the infidelity section if Emily signed the papers as they were. I agreed, wanting Emily to acknowledge her infidelity. Around 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, my cell phone rang. Since I didn't have a class, I answered. It was Emily, sounding upset and questioning why she had received divorce papers when we had supposedly agreed that she would file. I calmly explained that I hadn't agreed to anything and was merely trying to expedite the process to meet her wishes. She was particularly concerned about the mention of infidelity and abandonment, suggesting we change it to irreconcilable differences. Emily reiterated that she hadn't agreed to anything and proposed I accept the settlement, hinting that she would soon be married to a wealthy man. She offered to modify the grounds to irreconcilable differences if I signed the settlement as it stood. I informed Lisa about Emily's request and the involvement of Alex's lawyer in reviewing the documents. Lisa anticipated this and had the updated papers ready to send over. She mentioned knowing Alex's lawyer, describing him as a corporate attorney with no experience in divorce, predicting he would likely advise signing without much consideration. True to Lisa's prediction, Emily signed the papers, and they were returned to Lisa's office by Friday afternoon. I stopped by and signed them on my way home from work. The divorce would be finalized in 60 days. I called Sarah, and we arranged to meet for dinner near her new office. We had a pleasant dinner, talking for about 2 hours. Sarah sensed I needed to discuss everything, and indeed I did. We decided to refrain from any intimate activities that night and save them for Saturday instead. Later that night, Emily called, expressing concern about my well-being. She mentioned that she no longer had the right to use terms of endearment with me. I firmly stated that I would survive despite the pain she had caused me, emphasizing how deeply she had hurt me. However, I also conveyed that it didn't matter anymore, as she had achieved what she wanted, and unfortunately, I was no longer what she desired. Emily expressed remorse, saying she didn't mean to hurt me and that she still loved me very much. I responded dismissively, informing her that in the settlement, I would be canceling her car and health insurance, giving her until next Friday to arrange coverage. She thanked me and assured me that Alex would take care of everything. I clarified that I wasn't worried, I was just letting her know. As our conversation neared its end, Emily bid goodbye, expressing hope that I wouldn't think poorly of her for her actions. She reiterated her love for me, and at that moment, I began to feel emotional. I was sure Emily could sense it. My final words were a farewell and a wish for her to have a good life with her new man. I ended the call before she could say anything else. It was time to start my new life, and I hoped Sarah would be a significant part of it. Sarah arrived at my house on Saturday night at 6 o'clock, looking absolutely stunning. She stood about 5'9" with long blonde hair, shapely legs, and perfect curves. She looked like a goddess incarnate, with full, shapely lips begging to be kissed. She wore a cute little red dress that accentuated her figure, revealing some cleavage. My excitement was already evident, straining against my jeans. We enjoyed a lovely dinner on my deck overlooking the ranch, accompanied by plenty of wine. We dined, drank, flirted, and conversed for about 2 hours. Finally, she looked at me and said, "If you don't take me to bed soon, I'll explode," calling me cowboy. I literally swept her off her feet and carried her to my bedroom. We wasted no time undressing and indulging in each other's company. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and I spent a lot of time together. I proposed she move in, but she preferred to wait until after my divorce was finalized. Nonetheless, she often spent nights in my bed. About 5 days before my divorce was official, Michael called me. He informed me they were on the verge of taking action against King and his business. Everything King owned would be seized, as they had amassed substantial evidence and witnesses against him. "What about Emily?" I inquired. "She'll be questioned, but it seems she's in the clear. However, she'll lose her financial support and face a rough time ahead," Michael replied. "Well, that's her problem, I guess," I said. "Jack, I want you to know that my sister is thrilled with your relationship," Michael added. "She was crushed after her divorce. Do you think there's a chance you might become my brother-in-law one day?" Michael asked hopefully. "I hope so, Michael. It all depends on if she wants the same thing," I responded. "But I can tell you this, I've fallen head over heels for your sister." "She loves you too, Jack. I'll keep you informed about the King situation. Don't be surprised if Emily contacts you." It was Friday, and I was eagerly looking forward to the weekend with Sarah. It also marked the day my marriage to Emily officially ended. On my way home from work, I stopped at a convenience store to pick up some beer for the weekend. What happened next could be seen as fate, luck, or justice, but it was certainly unexpected. Emily called me, asking to meet. I agreed to have lunch with her. I invited Sarah, but she declined, knowing the purpose of the meeting and trusting me to handle it. I had taken the entire week off from work, planning to resign once they found a replacement. Additionally, we were busy moving Sarah into my place. Emily and I met at a nice downtown restaurant, as I had suggested. I was shocked when I saw her. She had gained weight and looked worn out. The past few days had clearly taken a toll on her, with her name plastered all over the news. There were even rumors about her being King's mistress. I noticed people staring and whispering as she entered. We chose a secluded table outside to have some privacy. We started with small talk, but soon she broke down in tears. "Jack, leaving you was the worst mistake of my life," she admitted. "I'm not saying this because Alex got arrested. I realized it a few weeks after moving in with him. At first it seemed thrilling, but the shine wore off quickly. I was miserable and felt sick every time I had to act like I cared for him. I didn't expect this," Emily continued. "I thought money was all that mattered when I left you. The guilt has been eating me alive for what I did to you and Samantha. Samantha barely talks to me now. You didn't deserve any of this, Jack. You were a great husband and took care of everything. I had it all but didn't realize it." "Thank you for being honest, Emily," I replied. "But you made those choices because you weren't happy with me." "I was happy with you, Jack," she insisted. "I let that old creep manipulate me. He seduced me, convinced me to leave you for him and his money. The night before his arrest, he forced himself on me. He's a disgusting, perverted old man. I hope he rots in jail." I fought the urge to laugh. "Where is this conversation going, Emily? What do you want from me?" I asked. Tears welled up in her eyes as she pleaded. "Please take me back, Jack. I love you and miss you so much. I miss our home, the ranch, the horses, and everything we shared. I'll do anything to make things right." "Emily, do you truly miss me? Or is this because you're broke, homeless, and jobless?" I inquired. "I'm broke, Jack, with nowhere to go," she confessed. "But I miss you terribly. I want things to go back to how they were. When you left, I made it clear it was final. There's no turning back," I reiterated. "Your decision was permanent." "I understand, Jack, but I'm desperate. You're my last hope." "I'm sorry, Emily. I've moved on and found love with someone else. We plan to marry eventually, but we're taking things slow because of our past experiences," I explained. Emily looked shattered, tears streaming down her face. It seemed she hadn't considered that I might move on. She sat there sobbing, and I couldn't help but feel some pity for her. "I once thought about revenge when you left, but now I just want to help," I said. "Is there anything I can do to assist you?" Emily looked up and said, "I was naive to hope you'd take me back. I don't blame you. I wouldn't take me back either. If you could lend me $5,000 until I find a job and a place of my own. I'm staying with a friend, but I need my own place." "How much do you need, Emily? I asked. "If you could loan me $5,000, I'll start paying you back once I find employment," she replied. As the waiter brought our food, Emily began eating, but my appetite had disappeared. Watching her, I pulled out my checkbook and wrote a check. Handing it to her folded, I said, "Emily, this should help you start anew. You're a skilled secretary. You'll find a job. If not, let me know, and I'll see what I can do." I regret how things turned out. My dream was to grow old with you, holding hands as Samantha said her wedding vows, watching our grandkids take their first horseback ride, and being buried beside you on the ranch. But fate had other plans. With that, I stood up from the table and left the restaurant, leaving a $100 bill to cover the bill and tip. I glanced back as she opened the check. Her expression turned to disbelief as she looked up, but I was already gone. I had left her a check with a pointed message. Smirking, I walked away, knowing she was watching from the deck as I drove off. After that, Sarah moved in, and we got married the following spring. Michael was my best man, and Samantha, having become close friends with Sarah, was the maid of honor. We had a small wedding in Vegas at Caesar's Palace with a close group of friends and family. The reception was in our honeymoon suite, making it a memorable event for everyone. I even won over $200,000 on a progressive slot machine, showing my knack for making money through gambling. Emily wasn't invited, but she heard about it through the local paper. Eventually, she found a job and a place to live, though she never paid back the loan, which I hadn't expected. Rumor has it she's dating a high school English teacher now, and I hope it makes her happy. Meanwhile, Alex King faced trial and was convicted of federal crimes. All his assets were seized to repay the government, and he'll spend a long time behind bars. Maybe he'll find someone more suited to his taste there.